welcome back to the Old Colony Cast, a podcast about all things Plymouth and surrounding areas. I am Andy, one of your hosts. I am also joined by Hanna.
Hello.
And Fish.
Hello.
And we are, no surprise, social distancing, so we're all recording from the comfy of safety, comfort, I don't know, from home. I don't even know anymore.
Whatever you want to say is fine.
Yeah, I didn't even know what day it was, so I thought I was booking this recording for a week from now, but I didn't know when now was. But not a big deal. So when last we met, we finished up the story of the Mayflower. And
real quick.
Do we have a recap?
We have a recap / I gotta backtrack and correct myself. So all these pilgrim guys.
He only brought 135 pairs of shoes.
Yeah, they just, you know what? When you read a very large book about them and take notes, their names start to sound like they're all the same English guy who came over on the Mayflower. So it was actually John Howland who got thrown from the ship. I was giving Brewster way too much credit for his adventurous takes on the
Howland
trip.
was the one that was like doing the Matrix, like thrown from the ship thing.
Yeah. So wrong street in Plymouth.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You know how it is. You see them all the time, you get them confused.
Yeah, they all look alike. All the streets in Plymouth look alike to you. That's fine, Hannah.
Look alike.
Which hotel are we talking about?
Okay, so that's what we did last time. It was a two-parter. You should check it out if you haven't heard it already. So we wanted to kind of change gears and do stuff that wasn't quite so historic, just to kind of keep it interesting. And so after a long conversation, we decided that we didn't want to go full true crime, but we are going to do 3 unsolved Plymouth area mysteries. So we each went and researched a different unsolved story of some kind. And so I know what everyone did. I think Fish, you know what everyone did. Hanna knows what she did.
I tactfully forgot what everyone did. Surprised.
Yeah, I was just going to say you didn't know. I was going to call you out for forgetting. But we didn't research the other person's thing, so it's going to be like one person filling in the other two and our audience. So we drew straws and decided Fish was going first.
As I cannot draw, so my straw looked the worst.
Yeah. So, Fish, what did you cover?
All right. I was looking around and I wanted something weird. I wanted something a little spooky because it's my style, and I figured it was going to be the most off thing I could find. So I poked around and I found something called the Black Flash of Provincetown.
Is that like a flash mob that happened?
Is it part of the Speed Force?
No, just assume that anything that you would think now of a Black Flash is just wrong.
Okay.
There is no Brian Blessed. There is no Speed Force.
Brian Blessed?
The 80s movie.
Oh, like Flash Gordon.
Flash Gordon.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah. Sorry, I assumed Andy would have gotten there. Alrighty, so we are going to... our story starts in October of 1939 in Provincetown. People started reporting, and by people I mean mostly children, were basically going to the police and said that they were being harassed and stalked and creeped out by a tall, black-dressed figure.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. And as it goes on, the stories get a little weirder, a little wilder. All of a sudden, he's 8 feet tall. He jumps out of the bushes and scares a lady and chases her into a business downtown.
So it's like ye old Slender Man?
A little bit of Slender Man, a little bit of Spring Hill Jack.
Okay. I was going to say, it's sounding like Slender Man. It's Slender Man.
Yeah, he's fake sugar. No. Splendor Man. He is 8 foot tall, wears all black, is occasionally described as having either silver ears or a silver face, or Originally, honestly, the stories weren't taken seriously because, well, it's a bunch of kids talking about a tall, creepy dude. So, yeah, whatever. But as these stories go on, more and more people see this, and more credible people see this. So all of a sudden, he is around town. He is chased into a school or a schoolyard, surrounded by the police, shot at, and then jumps over a 10-foot fence and gets away.
Okay. I suppose
And
your 8-foot guy jumping over a 10-foot fence isn't that bad.
I would suggest, when I say jumping over, I mean jumping over, not like climbing over, like vaulting, like just up and over.
In a single bound.
Yes, he leaps tall fences in a single bound.
Okay. I'm just going to say, too, if I see anything 8 feet tall, exist...
Yeah, I'm sorry, if you're 8 feet tall and dressed all in black...
I'm just going to be amazed at whatever you happen to do in, jumping over a fence, walking.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure that it matters at that point, right. How... It's like, I'm sorry, he only climbed over the fence, yes, but he was 8 feet tall.
Yes.
So be it.
You can walk by me on the street. It's going to be crazy. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so these went for, when reports for 7 years. And the last sighting was in 1945, when he basically chased a bunch of kids into a house. And they were all kind of stuck in the house. He was around. He was, rattling on doors. He was tapping at windows, trying to scare them. Until one of the kids got up to the second floor with a pot of hot water and dumped it on him and chased him off. Literally like a scalded cat. And that was the last anyone ever saw of him.
So, was it just like a guy on stilts now? He couldn't have been able to jump that fence.
Was it a guy on stilts? Was it two shorter people standing on each other's shoulders? Was it 4 people in pairs? No one knows.
With a lot of children strapped on top of each other.
Yes, it was just... Yeah, he didn't really jump over. It was just the top kid climbed over and everyone else just kind of hung to his ankles. Okay, so here is where it gets a little unfortunate. I kind of handed in my research. Everything that I just told you
You're all liars.
Comes from... Look, at least I figured out where my research went sideways. Everything I read comes from a folklorist book written in 1984 called New England's Most Mad and Mysterious Men. And it was written basically in the early 80s. So everything we hear is at least 40 years out of date, but also 40 years of, legend growing, which is kind of what you do.
Yep.
You tell the story, and all of a sudden, he wasn't 6'1", he was 8 feet tall, and he was jumping and he breathed fire, and
so
all that happened.
Were there ever any reports? Or is just the whole thing fictional?
Yes.
Okay. That's
actually one of the things. Thankfully, the Provincetown Advocate has all of their stuff online. All their archives are digitized. So you can go back, and there are 2 reports there's one in October and one in November of 1939, where the cops are discussing this. In the October statement, they basically, the article talks about the Black Flash, mentions that he's been menacing people, so it's obviously been going on for some time. And then in November 9th, it is a quote from the Provincetown Chief of Police, Anthony Tavers. And he says that he denies that the Flash has been arrested, but he says that it is dead and gone.
Ooh.
I'm assuming they didn't murder a tall guy and just hope for the best. Probably.
That's
maybe.
Or worse, many small people.
Or he didn't just go in a no, we're not going there.
No, I know, sorry.
We're not this is Hanna, stop dragging me down to your level. Your deep, morbid level. No, but there is at least a theory, or at least the chief was later said to have talked about, that it wasn't a tall guy. It was basically 2 sets of teenagers. So a lot of the reports were how he was in one place, and then suddenly in another place. And it was less that, and it was more two of the teenagers would pull a black flash in one spot, and then, 20 minutes later, a mile and a half across town, the other set would do it just to kind of keep people confused and frightened. And at least the theory is that the chief
killed the kids.
I was just going to say shipped them off to war because it was it was the late 30s, and then you probably said, guys, congratulations, you're fighting in the World War. Good luck. But no, I think he decided that he would just stop it and not,
Right, out them necessarily.
Arrest 4 kids for pulling what is, at least in theory, a harmless prank.
Right.
After 2 of them have been doused with scalding water.
Poor guys.
Yeah,
it happens.
It was stuff of actuality that then grew into a
something
book.
happened. Something happened in the 30s. There were reports of...
So this is very, very Slender Man. Like someone made it up, and then
up to a point with Slender Man.
Media at the time, it became real.
The difference is with Slender Man, there is no there. There was no tall, gangly dude in a white hat or a white mask.
But I mean, someone made it
wandering around the woods. But again, it's a lot of, but thankfully with fewer murders.
Off the topic of Slender Man, have you guys seen the picture of the Kingston Mall with Slender Man in the food court?
No.
I'll find it.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll post it.
It's 100% Photoshop, but I just appreciate time to do that.
Yes, Hannah. I don't know how to tell you this, but Slender Man isn't real.
Was he at Sbarro's?
He was like a gosh.
He was just standing outside Wax. He's looking forlorn.
Like where TCBY was, like next to Henry's newsstand. Anyway.
Okay, I do want to go off on the writer for a bit, the folklorist who wrote about the stuff in the 80s.
Okay.
Cool.
Because this is a fairly interesting dude and kind of weird, and I lost his name.
Happens to me all the time.
On one of the 85 tabs I got open here for my notes.
Can't believe you messed up someone's name, Fish.
I didn't ask it 4 seconds ago, so I'm not that worried.
Yeah. Someone posted in, I want to say, All Things Plymouth Facebook about the mall and, what stores they remember, and that's where someone just posted a collage.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I didn't really look at it.
Slender Man is in one of them.
That's awesome.
Okay, there we go. His name was Robert Ellis Cahill. He was a folklorist. He wrote 36 books on New England history and folklore.
Wow.
He was also served in the House of Representatives in the 70s and was the sheriff of Essex County during that time for about 5 years.
That's very cool.
It is very cool. Yeah.
I've never heard of him before.
I had never heard of the guy until I was looking into the guy who wrote the book that this was all based on, and it's...
Are they all
folklore
books,
literally...
Or?
What? Sorry, what?
Are they all folklore books?
Mostly, yeah. I mean, New England's Witches and Wizards. New England's Strange Sea Sagas. New England's Viking and Indian Wars.
To see if any of the folklore books are things that I've heard of, but never connected to a story that he maybe made up. You know what I mean?
I wouldn't be surprised. His stuff tends to show up in gift shops.
Okay. That's cool.
They're not super long tomes. They're, souvenir books.
Just New England Witches and Wizards made me think of Hagrid showing up and being like, Sully, you're a wizard. Wicked pisser.
You're a wizard kid.
Yeah.
Oh, God. I'm convinced that exists on the internet somewhere. I refuse to go looking for it.
Everything exists on the internet.
Yeah. Harry Potter, but everyone's from Boston.
So is that guy still alive?
No, he died about 15 years ago.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, it is, because it's super interesting life, super interesting guy. Apparently was the guy who decided that the jails in... the jails in... Salem and Lawrence apparently didn't have toilets until the 1970s.
Buckets?
Yeah, they had buckets.
Ugh. Oh.
Latrine. So what did
Nope.
he got toilets?
Yes, he's the guy who said, the prison should have, plumbing.
Some amount of, like...
Decency and, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of the fact that he looked at it and said, you know what? They shouldn't need to go to use a bucket.
It seems to me he had his hands in a lot of things. He was writing.
He was a man of broad and varied interests.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who managed to be elected sheriff while in the House of Representatives, because it was concurrent, and still managed to churn out 36 books in the last 30 years of his life.
Wow. That's crazy. To me, that blows me away, is that he did all that stuff and wrote as much as he did, because that's a lot.
I mean, I don't know how big the books are. I don't know how many drafts he did. But I've seen writers who can churn out, 2 shortish books a year.
George R.R. Martin? That's a rhetorical joke. There's no need for an answer, Fish.
Oh, man. That's really interesting. I'll have to look into him.
Yeah, he was an interesting dude, and it's just so many, just books of weird stuff, and it was very interesting. But yeah, it just... Sorry?
No, I said that's wicked cool.
Oh, okay.
That's not at all what I was expecting from the Black Flash, though.
No, it wasn't. But, I mean, they also he had a couple other names. My favorite was the Demon of the Dunes.
Ooh.
Because when you're in the newspaper in the 30s, you just keep plugging stuff in until something picks up.
Alliteration.
Yeah, you say that, but Black Flash is what stuck.
That's interesting, yeah.
That's the thing that got me. It's that's what everyone knows him as, and it's... But yeah, it had a real Spring-Heeled Jack, Slender Man, Mad Gasser Mattoon kind of vibe to him, and I'm a big fan of any...
Wheelhouse.
Superman Wheelhouse. I love mass hysteria.
I appreciate that you got Hanna, as we're so calling it.
Because I went through, and it's I'm trying to find, and the tricky part, we looking into this stuff. Hanna, yeah. The hardest part was, as I'm going through this, I'm desperately trying to find skeptical,
yeah, right,
takes on this, and it's really, really difficult. But I did find one folklorist by the name of Peter Muse, who apparently is a folklorist and kind of covers this kind of stuff, and his stuff was super helpful.
Oh, very cool.
But yeah,
and
that was in
P-Town, you said, right?
The Black Flash of Provincetown.
Okay. That they should do a Black Flash Day. I bet that would be really fun.
I feel like modern P-Town would have a very different take on the phrase Black Flash.
I think it would be.
And I feel everything you do in P-Town now is generally a fun event.
Yeah.
So cool.
Not a party.
All right. Andy, we'll put it on the Inebri-art list.
Okay. So does that conclude the Black Flash story?
Basically. I mean,
I don't want to
considering that arguably nothing really happened, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Would tell us a story that nothing happened. All right, so then I'm going next. Mine is not, there's no Hanna in mine. But there was a lot of contradicting facts, or kind of vague facts. And everything, the Wikipedia article and every other article I found about it was basically the first article copied and pasted somewhere else. Until I found a Wicked Local article. So shout out to Wicked Local, because they actually filled in a lot of details that were missing. Mine is not supernatural in any way, shape, or form. It is
that we know of.
Nope, it's not. Mine's more of a Scorsese movie, and it's called The Great Plymouth Mail Truck Robbery. It is the biggest heist of money of all time. At least when it happened, it was the biggest heist of money of all time.
Yeah.
So, and the surprising thing that I found out was, because like everyone I've talked to has never heard of this, but like people have heard of the Brinks robbery, which was the armored truck that got robbed, was less money than this. So I don't know why this wasn't really known about. So at the time, there was, they had armored cars, and then they decided to change the way that they did things. So they were transporting money from the Cape to the Federal Reserve Bank in Boston via a mail truck. And this had been going on for a grand total of 3 weeks before it got knocked over.
That is about 2.5 weeks longer than I thought it would take.
Well, it seems super sketchy that like someone knew something. So this happened on Tuesday the 14th. Let's try that again. Tuesday, August 14th, 1962. And so the mail truck was traveling north on Route 3. And initially I was wondering if this was Route 3 or Route 3A. But it is Route 3 because it happened just right near Exit 3 on the Clark Road overpass. And they estimated that the thieves...
I live right near there. Just sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. So Hanna did it. So initially, they had no idea how much money was taken because it was all in like small like deposit pouches from all these different banks and post offices and whatnot. So the initial estimate was between $250,000 and $2 million. They just didn't know. And when they finally totaled it up, it was $1.7 million, which in today's terms is wait, did I get that right? 1.5, which in today's term is $12.7 million. So it was a lot of cash in one mail truck. And so the truck driver was Patrick Sheena, and the guard was William F. Barrett. Now, both these guys were armed because they're transporting money. And they're, going down Route 3, and it's not like prior to the Cape being a tourist destination like it is today. And so it wasn't busy. And this car flew by it at like 80 miles per hour. And then as they kind of traveled further on down the road, there's a police officer kind of like waving them down. So they kind of put two and two together, and they're like, oh, there must have been like a car accident. So they come up to the police officer, and as they stop, these two other cars like shoot out from the side and block the truck's movement. So like the truck's like boxed in. And they pull... One report says shotguns, but everything else says that they pulled machine guns and like basically jammed the machine guns through the window. And so the police officers flagged them down. And this was one of the weird things is, so I found an interview with Barrett, and he said that they weren't wearing masks, but he couldn't see their face. So both Barrett and Sheehan were pushed into the back and tied up. And most reports say that they were blindfolded, but in Barrett's accounting, it doesn't say anything about blindfolding. It says that they were pushed in the back, and this is my favorite like gangster thing ever. They were told, be quiet and don't see anything.
Yeah. Real quick question.
Sure.
Neither of these people are mail carriers, right?
One of them was.
One of them?
Well, not like the guy that delivers mail to your house.
Okay.
Barrett was the guard, and Sheehan he worked for the postal.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a post office truck. It had a post office guy driving it.
And then it had
okay.
Yeah.
And they were strapped, both of them.
Yeah.
Okay. Just checking.
Well, they were carrying essentially $12 million.
Oh yeah, you got it.
So a few things about it. There's a lot of there's no hard number of how many people and how many cars were involved. Everything from 2 to 4 cars, and everything from like 4 to 8 people. I saw at one point that it referred to them using detour signs, which I didn't understand because it didn't really make sense. But then when I found the Wicked Local article, what happened is, so they were positioned, the robbers were positioned on the side of the road somewhere. As the mail truck went by, that's when the other car sped up to go past them. I'm assuming that was a police officer. They're estimating 2 people stayed there and set up essentially a roadblock with stolen detour signs and directed all the highway traffic off into South Plymouth. And the Wicked Local article actually went on to talk to people who remember the event as clogging up all the downtown traffic because they were just diverting people off the highway with no they didn't care. Like once they were off the highway, they were not witnesses, so they didn't care where they went.
You get off going, oh God, wait, am I supposed to take a right or a left at the end?
Exactly, yeah. So out of the 4 cars, they found 2 were abandoned by the House of Corrections in Plymouth.
Just imagine how mad you would be to have to take the Pine Hills when you definitely did not want to.
Right. And there's no Pine Hills there, so it's just all scrub pine and
It's actually hills in pine.
Yeah.
You're like, ugh. It's the worst day ever.
So
just trying to get home.
2 of the robbers jumped in and drove the mail truck. And they believe there were at least 2 other following in cars, which I don't know how they determined that because Barrett said they weren't supposed to see anything. The truck made multiple stops, and at each stop, they dropped off some of the bags with money in them. But they kind of were, bound up and either couldn't see or were told not to see, and the truck made a bunch of turns, so they have no idea where the money ended up. Eventually, the robbers dumped the truck about 25 miles away in Randolph near Route 128. And why it didn't occur to me at the time, but then I read another article. And Route 128 is significant because it's easy to go north of Boston, south of Boston, to jump on the expressway. And,
yeah, I mean, from 128, it's
128 you can get anywhere. So I think
93 is right there, 95 is right there, 24 is right there. I mean, you get on there, you're just gone.
Right. So I think that's kind of a strategic point. So the long and the short, never found the money, never found out who did it. But over the course of the next 5 years, because the statute of limitations is 5 years, apparently, when you commit a federal offense like this. But the FBI got involved, and the post office, the postal inspector, had a huge part in the investigation. So, of course, there's always suspects. There were 2 bank robbers, a Robert Nussbaum and a Bobby Wilkin, who were known in New York, and they were thought to be in New England at the time. And I guess an Abington police officer had been fired upon by someone that matched Nussbaum's description. But these guys were hardcore. They were wanted in New York for murdering a bank teller. They were on the FBI's most wanted list. These guys were the real deal. And I guess the heist kind of matched their MO with the machine guns and whatnot. So fast forward about 5 years, there's still no evidence, and so the Department of Justice offered $150,000 or 10% of the money recovered for information leading to an arrest. Postmaster offered a $50,000 reward for information leading to conviction, and he would consider if there was a suspect that died in a shootout, that was a conviction, which I thought was a really messed up way to look at things. Some other interesting things. The article reported that Boston was in near hysteria in the early to mid '60s because of all this, which I find crazy because, again, I couldn't find anyone who really knew about this.
I've never heard of this, and my dad lived in Boston in the '60s.
Right. I mean, my
I'm sure he would have mentioned the giant bank robbery at some point, or
So that near
Mail
hysteria,
car heist.
yeah, that near hysteria, I'm guessing is journalism. Let's call it that. And I guess the Trump would have been in his heyday because it was very fake news. They were pointing fingers at all sorts of people and like literally saying people were guilty in the newspaper without any real evidence.
What, they didn't even say allegedly like you're supposed to?
Nope. They were just calling people out. So as the statute of limitation started to run out, the Department of Justice and the Postal Inspector started to get like really anxious, and they started having known criminals followed and harassed and whatnot. So at the very kind of almost as it was about to run out, they indicted 4 men and 1 woman. One of these people vanished prior to the trial, and the others were found innocent in the trial. There was also a book by a Vincent Fat Vinny Teresa. His book's called My Life in the Mafia, and he said that it was all planned by a John Red Kelly. So that was kind of all the basic information that I could find. That was like the same almost everywhere with, a few variations. And so then I started trying to find out who were these people who got indicted, because to me that was the interesting part. And that's how I ended up on that Wicked Local article, which had a lot more information. So, well, one article I found said 4 people indicted and showed 4 mugshots, but didn't specifically say these are the people who are indicted. So I'm assuming that's who they are. Two of them I found in the Wicked Local article. John Red Kelly was one of them, and a Thomas Richards were 2 of the people who were definitely indicted. The other pictures were a John Tripoli and a George Aggie Agastelis. So I'm assuming those are the 4 guys indicted. I couldn't find anything on the woman indicted.
Yeah.
So further looking into that article...
Wait.
What?
So one of the guys indicted and found innocent is also the guy that the book said did it?
Yes.
Huh.
But that is the order, and I found out in that order that he was accused by the book, and then I found out later he was indicted. The person who disappeared was the Thomas Richards. And according to the article, he was going to testify against the other people and then disappeared.
Uh-huh.
And according to that article, there were another additional 15 suspects and informants that were all either murdered or disappeared based on this. But I couldn't find anything else on that. And it also talked about how, like, the postal inspectors were getting death threats and being followed, and so there was some definite, like, this was not your average, stick 'em up kind of hold up. This was a well planned, organized crime. And then another interesting thing is Ernest Tiedemann. He wrote the screenplay for The French Connection.
Okay.
He wrote a screenplay that became a book called Big Bucks, the true outrageous story of the Plymouth mail truck robbery and how they got away with it. So I just found that out today, so obviously I didn't have a chance to even look for the book. But so that in a nutshell is the Plymouth mail truck robbery, and bonkers.
That is completely insane. I have questions.
Sure.
One, whose bright idea was it to move large amounts of money in an unarmored car?
Well,
because that seems, I'm going to say stupid, because it sounds stupid.
It does. To me, it sounds like a cost-cutting type thing, which I'm not surprised by. The thing that surprised me was they're like, hey, we're going to do this, and 3 weeks later, they got robbed. So I definitely...
Oh, yeah, no, someone on the inside knew, but I'm saying it's...
But to plan such a effective crime in 3 weeks...
Yeah, and secondly, why bring the guys with you?
Oh,
like you said, they were tied up and like stuck in the back of the truck, right?
Yeah.
You could have just left them on the side of the road of Route 3. You're detouring traffic around.
Yeah, but the detour.
Why
The detour
bring
was
them
long
with
enough-
you?
Well, because again,
Why not just leave them
I can only assume I wasn't in the
for
plan.
like?
But if you detour the traffic, that was so there was no one there to see you hijack the truck.
Yeah.
But if you left the guys on the side of the road, that detour, like they didn't keep detouring traffic.
Yeah, it just.
They got out
I
of
figured
there.
you'd only need a. What? It just seems like bringing them along just is.
I think it's to delay the time in which it would get.
It just seems extra risky to have witnesses, even ones who aren't going to quote unquote see anything.
Yeah.
When you don't need to have, it just seems like they could have stashed them somewhere or left them in the trunk of one of the cars or whatever. Like even if you weren't planning on killing them, which kind of surprised me that they didn't just kill him, but
Well, I don't know. Maybe
I don't know. I don't know. I'm obviously also not a particularly competent criminal, so I'm not going to question their judgment. It obviously worked out for them.
Yeah. To me, leaving them on the side of the road is just going to get you noticed earlier.
Yeah.
And I don't know. They
Just
didn't want to kill people. They just wanted money.
I know, but they obviously weren't against. Oh yeah, I don't know.
They didn't kill anybody.
No, I'm just saying it seems. It just seemed like an unnecessary complication as opposed to just ditching them somewhere.
Yeah. Huh.
And
Does perfect crime exist?
Yes. And you can never know. Yeah.
But yeah, that was really cool. I too have never heard of that. It seems definitely like an inside job on some level. Someone
knew. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, someone knew which mail truck was, holding a ton of cash, supposed to just mail. Yeah. What time, what route.
Yeah.
Obviously scrounged up several helpers to block off the road, go ahead, dress up like a cop, and then wave the guy over.
Well, there was definitely a lot of people involved.
Like this was involved.
Oh, and one of the things they said is they're not sure so they dropped all this money off, and they're not sure if they dropped them off to people or kind of like stashes that have never been recovered. And there was questions about whether they never went back for it because they were concerned if the bank had the serial numbers that it could be traced, or because it was all small bills, and so they just for argument's sake, there could be 1.5 million in small bills from the 60s stashed somewhere.
Stashed somewhere between Plymouth and Randolph.
Yeah.
Well, so where did they come from again? Like, was there a specific location they were picking up from?
So they were picking up in several locations down the Cape, like Hyannis, Barnstable.
Was it like businesses?
They were taking bank
Okay,
money to the federal.
Got it.
The federal bank.
Got it. So yeah, it was already like bank touched money.
Yeah.
Yeah, got it. Okay. I was just thinking, like, if it wasn't, and it was like deposits from businesses, because you know how you have to do that, so you get like bank pickups. I'm like, that's actually not a terrible idea because none of it has like any.
Yeah, well,
it hasn't been touched by bank yet.
They still, every article I read was kind of like, this is how much money they got, but there's other. I mean, it was a mail truck. It was registered mail. There was all. I mean, I'm sure there were checks in the mail, kind of thing. So they're not even sure, like, kind of the full take and like what disappeared.
Yeah, and what happened to the rest of the mail in the truck?
As far as I know, it was left with the truck and the guys who weren't allowed to see anything.
This is like the biggest lesson of don't put all your eggs in one basket. Am I right?
Especially if your basket is particularly fragile and not armored.
And your eggs are $1.5 million.
Yes.
Yeah. It's virtually the same.
To me, it's baffling that at the time this was the largest, bank quote robbery, and like no one's heard of it. Like I've heard the Brinks robbery. And it's just never heard of this. Don't know anything about it. Feels like it's got Martin Scorsese written all over it.
I know, really. It sounds like a weird, like a prequel to The Town or something.
Yeah, exactly. So
Cool.
Hannah,
good.
what do you got?
So I have The Lady of the Dunes, but I cannot say it in my head, not in a Scottish accent.
Okay.
So
So
by all means.
Oh, I'm not doing it. I
You
just
have
want.
to.
I literally, I can't force myself to do it right now. Oh, it's bad.
Is the
But
Lady
please.
of the Dunes like two teenagers pretending to be a woman? I feel like we've heard that.
Oh, that's a whole different issue, Andy.
Oh man. So the Lady of the Dunes, and I hope everyone just quickly does a Scottish accent in their head of it after hearing it. So on July 26, 1974, a 12-year-old Leslie Metcalf discovers the body of a woman just yards off of an access road at Race Point Beach, not too far from one of the Coast Guard shacks. She finds it because she's out walking with her dog, and her dog smells it and obviously goes to investigate. It's not very far off of the road. So if you know what the dunes look like, obviously very sandy, right? But in between certain areas of the dunes, there's scrubby brush areas with like pitch pines, scrub pines, and, you know, a little bit more texture to the area than just sand. And that's kind of where that's where the body was. So she obviously reports it. Well, she tells her parents, and the police come and block off the scene. So there's not a ton of evidence there. The corpse is found lying face down on a beach blanket, a green beach blanket, with a pair of Wrangler jeans rolled under her head. Blue bandana is also with her. Both hands have been removed.
Sorry, Hannah, when did this happen?
In 1974.
Okay.
Yep, July 26th. So like real prime summertime down on the Cape. Mm-hmm. Not like it was a slow time of year. So it actually came up that the body, they don't know exactly how long it was there for, but it was likely that this person had been dead for 10 days to 2 weeks before it was found. So if it was there the whole time and no one saw it, because it really wasn't that far off. Yeah. So that's a little creepy to think about. No hands. They were cut off. One was cut off at the forearm. And it looked like the cause of death is likely due to blunt force trauma to the head with some heavy forced object, or strangulation. She was nearly decapitated. So, like, not the best scene to see when you're 12 or 13.
Or 36, or...
But, like, I feel like when you already are just learning to process things when you're that young, so, like...
Oh, that's definite lifelong scarring right there.
Oh, my gosh. Poor lady. Who I believe has passed away from what I have looked at as research. They are no longer interviewing her. They've been interviewing her family members that were there. So, anyway, so yeah, it's a definitely not, it's a very violent crime. It's hard to say exactly how or when it was caused because there's such little evidence on the scene. Like I said, her hands are cut off, so there's not like signs of struggle or anything like that. There's not a lot of movement in the area. There's actually pine needles built up where her hands would have been, which I thought was really creepy and weird. And kind of made me think that, like, if a little kid was playing over there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like sandcastle style. Am I getting too deep for you? Like, too weird for you guys?
Well, I'm just wondering if it's like they blew there and kind of got collected because of the icky gore, or like if someone salted them, you know?
Yeah, it's weird. It was really a creepy detail. But, so this person... Obviously, female, she's white, 5'6.5" tall, brownish reddish hair, in a ponytail at the time the body was found. Between the ages of 25 or 40, athletic build, and her toenails were painted pink. Like I said, she was likely dead for 10 days to 2 weeks before her body was actually found. There were signs of sexual assault post-mortem. Some identifying features were her dental work. So she had some really expensive-looking dental work. They called it New York style. She also had some teeth missing along with her hands that were removed, but the ones that were left, they were able to see that dental work there. So I thought that was interesting that any were left at all, if that was actually like a pretty identifying feature to leave.
I'm just surprised took the hands, left the face.
Okay, so when I say that she had blunt force trauma to the head...
Oh, it was the front of the head, wasn't it?
Yeah, it covered she was pretty much decapitated too, so it was like it was a brutal scene. I was trying to not dive into it too much. I think I got caught up on the pine needles too. The pine needle scene. And so, like I said, it's hard to really tell what the motive here was, because there isn't really anything else on the scene. And the hands and teeth were likely taken off to prevent identification of the body, and also any evidence left behind from the person who did kill her. So just kind of creates a whole situation with that. So there's 3 scenarios to what happened and like how she actually was killed. So she was either asleep when it happened, which means that it happened in that area, but the evidence doesn't really point to that as far as what the scene describes. So like I said, it's not like there wasn't any sort of scuffling around or like disturbance necessarily. 2, that she knew the killer, so therefore she didn't have any defensive wounds, but again, her hands were removed. So those would be typically the main areas you see defensive wounds on someone. So not necessarily... I don't know. You could disprove that she knew them pretty easily just because she didn't have any evidence. She didn't have anything to show that she didn't fight back.
Right.
And then the other theory is that she was killed somewhere else and just moved there, which I think sounds a little bit more appropriate, given that if you vacation here or if you're on the beach, you have to be someone who is probably not sober to find that area on the beach or dunes or wherever the place you want to go to sleep. When you're so
That's fair.
Like, I'm just thinking as someone who's like been in those areas in the dunes, I'm like, you don't want to sleep there. It's buggy. It's like the pine needles are itchy. It's not exactly shady. It's not like you're getting shade. The scrub pine is not like creating a lot of like casts for the sun to try and get through. And then, yeah, it's just an itchy area. So not fun to fall asleep in, again, unless you're not sober, I guess would be the only exception to that. And then, again, hard to say whether or not she knew the killer. She didn't have anything to identify that she had defensive wounds in the first place or defended herself. And there's a few theories as to who she is, because to this day she is still unidentified. One of which is the most popular theory is that was around the time that Jaws was being filmed on Martha's Vineyard. And Stephen King's son had apparently found a scene 45 minutes in or so where there's a lady who looks shockingly like the facial recreation that's out there of the Lady of the Dunes, wearing a blue bandana and like blue Wrangler or blue jeans. I don't know if you can see that they're Wrangler, but she does. She looks very similar. She has similar colored hair. And that part was filmed before this body was found. Obviously, Martha.
I was gonna say, has anyone identified who that actress is and like IMDb'd her, I assume?
So no, that hasn't been figured out, because when that was going on, the call for extras for that movie was very big, and I think so many of them went uncredited, and it's literally like a paused quick scene of a crowd people.
I gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, if it's just extras, I mean, they're like most of the time, if you're in a crowd scene, you don't get an IMDb page, you don't get a credit,
Right.
you just your scenery.
I thought it was like,
Yeah.
waitress number 7, that kind of thing.
No, she's very much part of the crowd, and if it wasn't, like, I think the scene is a blink of an eye kind of thing,
gotcha.
too. So the fact that it was noticed is, like, pretty crazy, but it does look very similar to her. And obviously Martha's Vineyard isn't, like, super close, but, if you live around here, it's very attainable to get to Martha's Vineyard and be on the Cape and really be anywhere. Like, and it's fine. You could do that within a day. Not that those things happen within a concurrent day, but feasible to think so, that it could happen within that timeline. Another theory is that serial killer Hayden Clark, that was active at the time, killed her. He confessed to killing her, but he has also falsely confessed to many other crimes and lied about certain details of crimes, and conveniently will not share certain things that are known about it, and or her name, like, won't identify her. So they don't actually think that that's the case. He was just known for trying to disrupt, like, investigations. So that's another theory. Whitey Bulger was seen in the area a little before the woman was found with a woman of similar description. So they think it could have just been someone taken out by, like, the Winter Hill gang for whatever reason. Because they had many.
Because that's what they do.
That's what they did.
Yeah.
So she is buried now, and she was buried in 1974, and her remains are in Barnstable. They have been exhumed on a couple occasions for further examination, testing, extracting DNA, and most recently a CAT scan to reprofile her facial reconstruction. On one of the occasions, her DNA, or on several occasions, her DNA was used to exclude certain missing people that have been local, or some not even local, just U.S. residents.
Kind of fit profile, and why not?
Yeah, exactly. So one of the people that they tested to see if her DNA matched for was runaway convict Rory Jean Kissinger. Or Kissinger?
Sure.
Okay. If I'm saying Kissinger or Kissinger. Have you guys heard that name before?
No.
Yes?
Kissinger?
Kissinger?
Wait, say it again.
Kissinger. I'm going with Kissinger.
Okay.
Like the Secretary of State?
Sure.
Kissinger. Oh my God. Okay.
Like, you've never heard of Henry Kissinger?
No, I have, but I've been saying her name to myself. Have I been saying this wrong? I'm overthinking it. Okay.
No, it's fine. Just every time you say it differently. And then I'll pick one, and then I'll cross-edit it back in.
So anyway, Rory Jean Kissinger was an escaped convict from Plymouth County in 1973, January 1973. So her story leads to one final cap on this whole mystery of the Lady of the Dunes. That, I mean, it really doesn't have anything to do with her, but I have to tell you about Rory Jean Kissinger. So she...
Wait, what was her name?
I'm gonna just call her Rory.
Rory.
So we're on a first name basis. So she first made her way into crime as a teenager. She ran away from home at the age of 15. She ran with a quote-unquote tough crowd and described as very pretty, and I've seen pictures of her, and she is gorgeous. So she was quite the, like, I don't know, deceiving person, because she was so pretty and, like, a petite lady, and then was also kind of a monster.
Okay.
So yeah, she was dangerous. She was wanted in several states across the country for armed bank robbery. drug and gun running, and like several other misadventures she had gotten into in her time. So, like I said, she was small. She was 5'3", brunette, blue-eyed, and 24 at the time of her disappearance. So she didn't really fit the bill totally. The only thing that she fit with Lady of the Dunes was the possible age and the fact that she was around the same time that body showed up. So the reason she was put into Plymouth Correctional was because she was hiding out at a residence in Pembroke where an officer just so happened to be making a stop to give a warrant to someone who actually lived at that residence. So he's helping out Stoughton police, but because she was wanted for other things, she took off out the back. Now it's January 73 and it's really cold, but she just took off. She's only in her underwear. And he gives chase to her and catches her, and she tries to claim that she's a rape victim and she's like kind of being held there against her will. But then on their way back to the house, she wrestles him and tries to take his gun away, to which he like thwarts her off and gets her back to the house. But as soon as they get in, she runs into another room, shuts off the lights, grabs her own gun. And then when he turns them back on, she's holding him at gunpoint and says, "I'm sorry, but I have to kill you." There are other officers there because they were serving a warrant to a person that lived there. So she gets tackled, disarmed, whatever. They get the gun away from her, and now she's they don't know what's going on with her, so they have to bring her to the hospital for a wellness check, I guess, because she's probably acting a little crazy. And
so far she has run out the back door in her underwear, claimed to be a rape victim, attacked a police officer, tried to take his gun, ran off and pulled a gun on a cop. And yeah, she's not really covering herself in glory here.
No. So when they get to the hospital, she somehow gets a gun from another police officer, and then does actively try to kill him and yells, "Die, you effing pig," and then also gets subdued again. And then this is where she gets charged, and I don't know if she ever actually ends up getting convicted of these things. It doesn't say. I don't know if she actually got her court date, because on May 26th, 1973, she has since convinced a guard to sneak a hacksaw into Plymouth County, and she escapes through the laundry room of the bars in the laundry room, and she ties sheets together and lowers herself down to freedom.
I can't believe someone actually did that.
Yeah.
It's so cheesy.
And she was
and then she
literally...
goes, "Come and get me, coppers."
She literally disappears off the face of the planet. They think that the people she was in business with probably killed her. One of the sheriffs, during the time, said she's likely digging up daisies. They don't have a lot of hope for her, but they have zero evidence of that.
Mm-hmm.
And if she's dead, they don't have to pretend they're looking for her.
Yes. There are two people that she was known to be in business with. One was killed at with the FBI. With the FBI. The FBI killed him in a shootout at a bank robbery. And then another one, I think, is still in prison or died in prison for some crazy convictions of whatever. More armed robbery stuff. So they thought that the Lady of the Dunes might be her. Her DNA was ruled out, so it's not her. But from this, I found two different types of unknown or missing people. So we have one who's a convict, who is still an active case, but you're right, Fish, not actively being looked for. I think because of that, a lot of her information is very unknown. It's very hard to find out anything about her on the internet because police are still not allowing certain information to come out. And then we have another person who we have the remains of, but we don't know the person or we don't know who is actively looking for them, I guess is the issue, right? Like when you have a Jane Doe.
Right.
But
Yeah.
no
and
one
you're assuming
knows.
someone's looking for them anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
And no one knows that they should be looking for them or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
Is it really kind of wrong of me that I would really like to start pulling DNA samples and send them to like 23andMe?
So
No,
And
I
just-
literally had that same
And
thought.
just see who pops up as, oh, you've got 5 of these cousins. Like, oh, do I?
yeah, so funny enough, that's probably the most recent update on her is on the
Oh, I'm
lady.
sorry. I didn't mean to jump ahead.
That's okay.
That's my job,
You-
man.
I know.
Look, we're all out of it. No one knows what day it is.
You
But
were
apparently-
No one knows whose job is who.
you were right in line with like my next update because I was watching a thing from the Cape Cod paper, Cape Cod News, that said they are using like the new ancestral whatever DNA things out there to find matches, familiar matches to the Lady of the Dunes, hoping that we can find something. So her case is still very active too. If you go on to both Plymouth like Sheriff's website and look at like what we have for missing people, Rory Jean is still on there, and Lady of the Dunes is still an active case, very active case for P-Town. So yeah, that's what I got.
Awesome. That's fun.
Yeah.
I feel like, oh no, they all kind of had a Cape Cod tie. So
Yeah, I mean, we stayed pretty regional.
yeah,
I know, I was able to wrap mine back up to Plymouth.
yeah, nice.
Yeah.
All right, so that's it, listeners. That was our 3 unsolved mysteries, and we will be back in 2 weeks' time with another Plymouth area something. We haven't picked a topic yet, or what, but we will have something to talk about. And stay safe and stay healthy. And do we have a sign off, Hannah? I mean, like, should we do like finger guns?
I don't think anyone will hear it.
Yeah,
What if
'cause
we
you
do
go-
it and then say pew pew?
You go pew pew.
I don't know about that.
No, all right. We're still workshopping the official sign off, but until next time, stay healthy. How about that for now?
Yeah.
Bye.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. You can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art, except for Instagram, we're at Inebri-art6. You can email us with your questions, complaints, and whatnot at Inebri-art@yahoo.com. And if you're looking for more podcasts, you can check out the other podcasts on our network, Retro Redoctopus, America's Hometown Horror, and, of course, Bar Talk, Old Colony, and Inebri-art Podcast, the original. So check those out and subscribe and comment so we can reach more people, and thanks for listening.